Welcome to Development Hell. Available now from Dread, the Queen of Spades. According to legend, an ominous entity known as the Queen of Spades can be summoned by performing an ancient ritual. 4 teenagers summon the Queen of Spades, but they could never imagine the horrors that await them. The Queen of Spades is available on demand everywhere and on Blu-ray, July 3rd, 2021. For every horror movie that hits VOD, countless others end up DOA. Development Hell is the podcast dedicated to unearthing these cursed horror productions. We're going to find out what went wrong, and then decide if these titles still stand a shot at the green light. I am your host, Josh Korngut. I am a filmmaker in Toronto, Canada. This podcast is a proud member of the Dread Podcast Network. Today we are joined by a very special guest. We have Jinx with us. That's Jason Jenkins. He is a writer on Bloody Disgusting. His column, Phantom Limbs, is also about horror that never happened, and it's awesome. He has a recent article about Candyman 4. He has a really iconic episode about the lost House on Haunted Hill 3 that never was. We're very excited to have Jason back. Jinx, how would you introduce yourself, or reintroduce yourself, I guess?
Me? Gosh, that's a great question. I am a writer for Bloody Disgusting. I have a few columns there, including Phantom Limbs, Larval Ink. I do Mask of Insanity, and I have a comic book column called Blood Ink Staples. And in addition to that, I'm the host of Scream Addicts, which is a podcast that's currently sort of we're in the middle of a side project called Hammer Pub, wherein a co-host of mine named Paul Farrell and we are tackling various Hammer horror films. While the original idea was for it to be a drinking podcast, but I became a teetotaler about halfway through. So now, if you listen to any of the current episodes, I'm sober, and Paul gets steadily more and more drunk as the commentary goes. But other than that, I would just say that I am a all-around nerd and movie
Would
fan.
you say the Hammer horror movies need your attention, or when you're drunk or just not sober, does it work?
I think Hammer horror movies are good for any occasion, any age range, really. Well, maybe not some of the 70s movies. Once they started to dip their toe into sort of grindhouse territory, you start getting into more bloodshed and gore and exploitation and nudity and whatnot once you get into the later years. But the early stuff, like the classic stuff, the early, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee movies, I mean, throw them on at any point. They're good anytime.
I also love that these labels either have tried or are trying to make a bit of a comeback. I was talking with someone recently about Dark Castle, how they're sort of releasing titles again, starting with Seance this year. And I love them. And I kind of think that there are modern Hammer horror in a way.
No, I totally see that. It's funny. I think you and I touched on Dark Castle a little bit during my last appearance here, and I adore them. I really do. It was so strange to see during the late 90s, early aughts, when they were really in their heyday, so many people throwing stones at them. Dyed-in-the-wool horror fans. If you were to, this was kind of before social media, so you would have to hop on the message boards or, read the letters pages in Fangoria to sort of take the temperature and see that most of the fans, the older fans, did not really care for that run of movies. Meanwhile, me, I'm in college and I'm grinning ear to ear while watching House on Haunted Hill or 13 Ghosts or any, going all the way up through probably Orphan. I think Orphan was the last sort of movie that they did before they went the route of like doing some weird Liam Neeson action movies.
They jumped genre. How dare they?
It's just so bizarre. But yeah, you're right. After this past year, we got Seance, which was maybe not 100% successful, as it were, but it's at least it's Dark Castle doing horror, and that that had me grinning no matter what. And we're getting an upcoming Orphan prequel. I'm looking forward to that. But Yeah, prequels are always weird. I mean, maybe they felt that there was demand for an orphan movie, and well, given the ending of Orphan.
We are still talking about that ending though to this day.
you
Like, yeah,
just bring her back like Jason Voorhees. Don't give me a. We already have the prequel. It's built within the previous movie. We know
oh
what happened.
yeah,
So that's kind of what bums me out about it. But you know what? Just do a sequel. Have her rise from the lake. A little pissed off, and she has neck problems.
I love
Otherwise, we're
that.
good.
Now that you're saying it, I do recall being very excited about your article featuring the Never Made House on Haunted Hill 3. So yes, you are. You know what you're talking about.
That conversation was so great. William Massa, he sort of shone a light on the possibilities of further Dark Castle movies in the late aughts. What the initial plan was for a Warner Premiere to fund several straight to DVD movies, including, I mean, they were talking about doing not House on Haunted Hill 3. They were talking about House on Haunted Hill 5, 6, 7. They were going to do a House of Wax sequel. They were going to do all of this stuff. And then the bottom fell out of that market. And that was kind of that. And then a few weeks later, I was lucky enough to talk to Todd Farmer and Patrick Lussier about I Saw What You Did, which was due to be a Dark Castle movie that was going to return to the roots of that company and adapt a William Castle movie, like an old movie. And that was going to be amazing. Unfortunately, that fell through too. So I really hope they come back roaring at some point. I miss the days of $20 million mid range horror films that are just great popcorn flicks?
I miss it. I just watched the original 13 Ghosts for some reason not long ago. Um, I don't know. I'm bored. I'm a kid. I need my movies in color. Sorry. Um,
No, I get those movies do, some of them can be a little patience trying at times. I do adore Castle's original House on
yes.
Haunted Hill.
Yes, I do
And
too.
his original I Saw What You Did is it might try your patience for a couple of minutes here and there, but I got to say it knows when to get in and get out mostly. I think it's like maybe 80 minutes long. It
Perfect.
moves kind of like a bat out of hell, and there's just no fat on that man's movies. I would also recommend, if you get the chance, check out a movie that he did called Mr. Sardonicus. That to me was the movie that Dark Castle should have made in the early aughts. They should have gotten William Malone
My
with
hero.
his, weird sort of crazy aesthetic, from
Oh yeah.
House on Haunted Hill. Moreover, like his aesthetic from his Tales from the Crypt episode, Only Skin Deep. If he had applied that to a modern Sardonicus remake, I think it would have been an absolute classic. Not merely something that we look back on fondly, like a popcorn flick that we're all nostalgic about. I think that man could have made an absolute masterpiece, and it just kind of bums me out that he hasn't yet.
So I'm so happy that you brought him up. He does not get talked about enough. The reason that I am
No,
so in love with him is the Masters of Horror episode, The Fair Haired Child. I
fair haired
cannot stop
child,
thinking
yes.
about it. It's been 20 years. Am I cursed? I think I am.
that's a that's a man who, I remember when and admittedly I think the movie's a misfire, but the film that he did,
Mm-hmm.
Fear.com,
Uh-huh.
I remember, yeah,
I know. I'm with you. I'm with you.
it's not it's a misfire, but it's, who I think nailed it. Roger Ebert did a review of it, and he gave the movie itself overall
Okay.
2 stars, but for his direction, he gave it four
Hmm.
stars and said that this is a guy, if paired with the right script, is going to
Yep.
make a masterpiece. And I agree with that, because I think his visual style, like, he's one of the best shooters
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
genre, but he hasn't worked. He hasn't made
Hmm.
anything in ages, and it's a
I,
crime.
it's so funny. All my close friends are so bored of me talking about him, and I agree with you 100%. That I feel like the easiest comparison I could ever make is that he kind of has a bit of a auteur Tim Burton, but actually horror energy that we really could have used because it's so creative and cerebral and one of a kind.
I agree. I agree. And if you look at his Tales from the Crypt work,
Okay,
especially
I haven't
again, I'll
seen
go back to
these.
Only
Can you give me
Skin
the
Deep.
titles? Yeah,
Oh my good. Okay, so I can't
I'll
remember
find
the
them.
titles of the others, but they are all good. But his Tales from the Crypt work is amazing. But specifically, I believe, I want to believe it's season 6, but there's an episode called Only Skin Deep, and I might even be getting that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And it's about a guy. having a pretty horrific one night stand, and that's all I'm going to say. Um, but so if you look at that, and if you look at his work on House on Haunted Hill, which on a script level is a little rote, it's a little routine, especially fear.com, was they were kind of doing a ring riff and not anything terribly special with it, again on a script level. But there's something about his direction, there's something about his visual style, his eye, like his pacing. His work feels dangerous, and I swear if he were paired with a script that took the same kinds of chances that he does as a director, if I think if he could find a script that matched his aesthetic, he could make something
Okay, you
truly
have to break him
special.
out of jail. You have to break him out of Hollywood jail.
When's the man getting
Never.
paroled?
And
It's
also,
been
it's
too
too
long.
late. I feel like it's too late. I think. No, you don't think so?
No,
You don't
no,
think it's too
never,
late for
never too
some?
late.
I think
Never.
I don't know. I'm a big Tori Amos fan, but the later albums no good. So I'm
Oh,
very
yeah,
ageist.
true. Well, I did listen to the recent episode of Pure Cinema with Tarantino where they were talking about directors' last films. And yeah, I mean, that is a thing, where at a certain point your faculties start going south a little bit, admittedly. I mean, God, I love you, Dario Argento. I really do. But man, after the Stendhal syndrome,
Yep. Tim Burton's another big one. Like, holy cow! Stop in 2003,
uh,
please.
but the thing about Burton is that really frustrates me is that I think the guy who gave us all those classics early on in his career, I don't think it's a matter of his direction, his style, his ability to direct a film. I don't think that's what's failing him. I think he's selling out and he's doing easy
Mm.
work. I think he's a
You
paycheck
see,
director
interesting, because
now.
I have Big Eyes on the phone, and it wants to speak with you, and it has something to say to you. I think personally. So
Fair. 100% fair. He and that Big Eyes was sort of like that's the hint of the man that I wish that he had become in his later years. But instead, I'll give you right back. I'll give you the 1-2 punch of Dark Shadows and Dumbo. Yeah.
actually, I haven't seen Dumbo because I don't hate myself, but Dark Shadows was
I, I
tragedy.
I was there opening night.
Oh, I'm sorry
I
to
was there.
insult you.
No, no, it's I grew up with that cartoon, and
Oh,
what's
okay.
crazy is that you look at Dumbo's story and you imagine pairing Burton with it. Much like Dark Shadows. If you
Yeah,
just put that down on paper, Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, Dark Shadows,
genius.
like those three words on paper are one of the
Ugh,
best movies you watch this year, and yet
it was what it was,
it,
and Michelle
it was what it
Pfeiffer
was.
too.
My God, everybody! It had an amazing
Everybody,
cast. It had a beautiful look. You had Danny Elfman killing it with that
my
score.
baby.
Um, and it just, honestly, I came into possession recently of a copy of John August's original screenplay for Dark Shadows, which was described by somebody at one point as like The Godfather with vampires. It was deadly serious. It it adapted the original TV show, but took it seriously instead of. I guess at some point August had to. I'm writing an article about it, but August had to, I believe, leave because of another contractual obligation. He wasn't going to be around to do rewrites. Yeah, and then Seth Graham Smith came in, and instead of rewriting it, he just started from scratch, and it became what it became. And you have this movie that pokes fun at the original source material, and it's like it's not half as clever as I think it thinks it is. And
I love Dark Shadows so much, and not because I've seen a frame of the original series, because I have not, but I did catch that 1991 like NBC primetime version that only lasted
it's
for one season, and
that's the best telling of the story.
really, because I'm obsessed
Yes,
with it, and I only know it because of one friend, and no one else I've ever met has ever seen it, and so I'm just alone with this. But hearing you say that is so comforting.
you are not alone. I will tell you. I had the experience. I was, I think, 9 or 10 at the time when it came out, and it was such. I don't know if NBC thought it was, but just in my own family, because my folks grew up in, knowing what it was in the '60s, and so they kind of grew up with it. But it felt like an event,
Oh yeah.
this show. So I was there First night, watching the pilot, loving it. I was there every week. The damn thing kept getting preempted by constant news
The war.
updates about the
I
Iraq War,
know.
and
I
that's
know it's terrible.
and it would happen in the middle of the show. So you could literally be halfway through, and then Barnabas yelling Willie,
I
and then
love
uh,
Willie. Fuck.
cut to Tom Brokaw or something talking about how we're fucking up in the Middle East.
It does
You
work if
know,
you think about it really hard, but not enough. Okay, I
but
love
it's
that. Ugh.
yeah, the original show I did wind up loving through watching the reruns that would play on Sci-Fi in the early 90s. But I got to tell you, and I surely have not watched all 1100 episodes of the original show, but
Mm.
I will say from what I've seen, I've seen the Barnabas saga. I've seen hours and hours and hours and hours of it. I've watched the original movies from, the 60s and 70s. I've tried watching, the bootleg of the old CW
Oh,
show that got one
you beat
pilot
me
and it
to the
was,
punch. I was gonna bring that up. And by
yeah,
the way, WB pre CW.
yeah, you're right, you're
Yeah.
right, WB. But yeah, I will say, out of all of the iterations of that show that I have seen, and I'm including the Burton movie, of course, the 1991 show with Ben Cross and Joanna Going,
Oh, she's so
um,
good.
honestly, between Ben Cross and Joanna Going, that might be the best looking like cast that any show has ever had.
You know what? And you don't even need him for that. But she that role. Like, listen, not the greatest role for women that was ever written, but there's something about it that I just can't stop thinking about or look away from. God, I could do a podcast on that 1991 series alone.
Let's do that. Let's
I
do
would.
a podcast on Dark Shadows 91. It gets too little
I
love.
literally would. And also, I don't know if you know, you probably don't know, but I am trying to become you. I'm stalking you, by the way. I'm starting my own development hell column at Dread Central, and I'm gonna have to take you
Nice.
down and kill you, by the way.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I had a good run.
we're plotting against you. That said, I'm obsessed with your column. I read it. I check in every once in a while. The Tony Todd stuff is so cool. That man is just, obviously an icon, not to be
That was,
underestimated.
I kid you not, that maybe I shouldn't reveal this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I have a list that I made early on that I put together. Like, I consulted the old terror teletypes from Fangoria, stuff that I had read about over the years that I was always curious about, like audio commentaries, stray
Oh
mentions,
yeah,
Wikipedia pages. I
straight
made a
edge.
master list of
I need
all
that
of
list.
the yeah,
I need it.
I made a list of like all of the different things that were never made that I wanted to tackle. And Candyman 4 was one that I didn't even have to look up. It was on the list because
Oh yeah.
I'd remembered reading about it back in the day
Oh,
on like
same.
the original Fangoria.com.
Yeah.
And if you remember Creature Corner
I
and Coming
actually don't remember
Attractions, and
Creature Corner.
Creature Corner became Dread Central eventually. There was a
Egg in my face. Oh my
No, no,
god.
no. It was no. It's fine that you don't know that because trust me, that website has gone through many. I used to write for Dread Central back in the day, and I think it's changed hands like 3 times in the last 10 years since that happened. But if I recall correctly, there was Chud, which was Cinematic Happenings Under Development. Creature Corner was kind of an offshoot of that became its own thing. Then Creature Corner was, I think I'm getting this right, was bought by the Horror Channel
Okay.
to be its own thing. And then they broke free of the Horror Channel and became Dread Central, I want to say in
7.
2007,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think.
it is
And
7.
then it kind of went from there. And Steve Barton headed it up for years. That's when I wrote there. And I think he left around 15 or 16. And then since then, it's been through a couple of different hands. But
Yes, it
but
has.
yeah, no, I would read about Candyman 4 all the
Me
time
too.
back in the day. So that was one that I was always kind of interested in. And early last summer, the thing that kicked Phantom Limbs off was an article on Candyman 2 with Bernard Rose. And so
Yes, I
I
remember
was
you
like, you know
talking
what?
about
I'm just gonna keep the Candyman train rolling, and I'm gonna see if I can talk some Candyman 4 with Tony Todd. Reached out to his people, and they were basically like, he's not doing any press until the new Candyman comes out, which has been pushed back to September because of COVID. And I was like, understood. And then obviously by the time September rolled around, it's like, well, it got pushed back again. I'm like, I'm never going to be able to speak to this man. And then out of the blue, I want to say it's maybe a
I'm
month
so
or so
jealous.
ago,
Oh my god.
John Squires got in contact and he was
Oh,
like, hey, Tony Todd is on the sort of doing a press tour for this movie that he
Uh-huh.
did called The Changed. And I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, okay, I was like, I will do the interview for The Changed. I was like, we'll talk about his career. I was like, do you think there's any chance I can convince him to talk about Candyman 4? And he was like, well, you can give it a shot. And I was like, you're right, man. I can give it a shot. And I was able, what surprised me the most, I always had it in my head that the screenplay for the thing existed in its entirety. There
No.
was a full
Yeah, I
script written that
didn't.
was ready to go. No, no, not at all. And
Not at all.
he basically provided like these things that I had already heard, and then a handful of other things that hadn't been out
I
there. But
saw.
otherwise, he was like, "That's it." He's like, "That's as far as we got." It was basically just a story, and I was like, "No, Tony Todd, tell me
I
more."
know. It just has. I remember like in 2004 when I heard about it, the log line or just the premise is everything that I've ever wanted, which is just snowy Candyman. Also make it a private school in New England, hopefully with a lot of girls. Like that's everything for me. So it's too bad,
Yeah,
but at least we are getting new Candyman, and it's soon. So thank
I
God.
really hope that the new Candyman, that is, we just got the new trailer for Halloween Kills, but I gotta say,
Mm,
as much as people are going crazy for that, and I really want to see it
I'm
too.
not going crazy.
But my most anticipated movie this year is Candyman.
Oh,
Like the Clive
hands
Barker fan in me,
down,
it has to be that.
hands down.
And I will say, as far as I'm looking forward to Development Hell on Dread, I'm looking forward to your column because I am, I have found that people, and I'm not going to name names, but I have found that there is some caginess out there when it comes to like crossover interest. Like
And I
I
agree.
okay, so well, here's the thing. Like ever since I was a kid, like reading in '95 again, Terror Teletype and stuff like that. I read about. I think you and I talked about this a little bit, but like Tarantino and Scott Spiegel talking about Halloween 6 and just mentioning little bits and pieces about what it was,
Oh,
but
yeah.
then essentially saying, well, that's never going to happen. And, as a kid, I'm like, well, at least tell me what it was going to be if
Yeah,
I'm not
and
going to get it. Why? You can't just tease me like that. So,
mhm.
when you would get documentaries like, was it Steven Scarlato's Jodorowsky's Dune? I was like, an entire documentary based on one of these? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah,
And then you got the guy who did, oh, was it The Death and Life of No, that's not what it was called. I'm sorry. Superman Lives.
okay.
Talking about the Tim Burton movie. There was an entire documentary
Oh, right, about the
based on
Nicolas
the
Cage,
Nicolas
Tim
Cage.
Burton version.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, between those and there's a great podcast called I think The Best Movies Never Made. There have been books. There was a great Halloween book that came out last year called Taking Shape 2 that was just about unmade. Um, I believe it's Joshua Hull just had a book came out called The 50 Best Movies Never Made. There's another book coming out later this year that is all about unmade horror films. And to me, like, and like, yeah, yeah. And like I said, like, no, 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 no. Here's why. There was, and I'm not going to name names, but there was, so I did a couple of columns last year, and there was crossover with some material that somebody else had covered elsewhere.
Like
And they
everything that's
got to
ever been
me
written. Sorry to interrupt.
exactly. And so there was kind of this feeling they were like, hey, you did a great job with that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm
Nice.
like, oh, well, hey, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And they were like, yeah, but, we were kind of covering this first. And it's like, what? I was like, I felt myself in a position. I'm trying to, totally. And I was put in a position where I was kind of like, I have you ever had like those weirdly confrontational moments where everybody is still smiling and being polite? That's what it felt
I mean, I
like.
am Canadian,
Where
so yes.
fair
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, so I found myself in a weird position where I
Mm.
had to. I didn't have to certainly, but I was like, I'm going to try and be the nice guy here and take the high road. I had to point out, like, okay, so this column has actually been planned since this point, and all of my research was different, which you can probably tell because you didn't cover some of it on your thing. It was one
Mhm.
of those things, and they never spoke to me again. But
People are
to me,
crazy.
my feeling was like the more the better. Like I picked up the 50 best movies never made. I listened to that podcast.
It's
I'm gonna read your column. I can't wait to pick up that horror book later. I can't get enough, of the subject. So more, give me
I
more.
agree with you on a purely moral level. And when it comes to the column, I am the last person that's ever come up with a like unmade horror movie column, so I can't be mad. But when it comes to podcasts, I do have my my ear to the ground about similar ones out there. And I am keeping an eye on them, and I am jealous of them if they do better than me. So I can't lie to you and say otherwise. But off the record is all that. On the record is I'm very supportive and gracious. But I'm sorry you went through that. I literally, first of all, I'm pretty sure I've covered post your articles. I'm pretty sure I've like covered many of the same topics, and I celebrate that.
And no, that's the thing is like that's kind of the feeling that I was getting from this other person was like, well, I already covered it, so, and then you covered it, so that's kind of weird that we both covered it. I'm thinking like number one, you don't own this, but number two, your article reveals things that mine didn't, and my article reveals things that yours didn't. And so now fans get to discover both things, so if you're going to do like a podcast, like I would invite you to please, like, and I'm not just talking about you, I'm talking about anybody out there, like, please use those other titles because you're going to have an opinion, you're going to have a perspective, and you might be able to dig up info that I was never able to. And, more to me is only ever going to be better when it comes to that.
Yeah, especially in this community of horror. I think we've seen a lot this year about what happens when you try to gatekeep this community and how we're just not allowing it anymore. And I think it's beautiful, and I love to watch it all burn. So great. I'm here for it. Although, yeah, if you want to start a Development Hell podcast, don't do it. I'll slide into your DMs very rudely. I'll tell you to stop.
It'll be like production Hades. I'll change it just a little bit.
Yeah. Luckily, I feel like because it's specifically to horror, I feel like there's a lot of podcasts out there that are just development hell in general. Because let's face it, it's the most interesting topic there is. Like, what is more interesting, honestly? Like politics? No. 100% not. Wow, I love that we're 25 minutes and we have not even explained what the episode is. All of this is getting cut, but it was so fun to talk about.
No, keep it all. This is all quality content.
Oh, absolutely, and I knew it would be. Okay, everybody. So as you know, by clicking this episode, we are going to be covering Zombieland, the series. I don't know if you're familiar with Zombieland, the series, but luckily we are. Have you had a chance to check out the pilot, Jinx?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yes, I've
okay, good.
I watched it. I rewatched it earlier today.
Rewatched it, so he's seen it.
Oh, I did the full on for folks out there who don't know this, and I'm sure you're going to dive into this. So I'm only going to touch on this for 2 seconds, but yeah, I watched it on Amazon. I don't even know if it was called Amazon Prime back then. It's instant video, I think. Yeah, and I was one of the voters, and yeah, spoiler alert. I gave it the thumbs down, so that's on me, I guess. I did.
Wow, do you regret that decision?
Not remotely.
No. Wow. Listen, just because it's bad doesn't mean it doesn't deserve to exist. That's how I feel about it. Yeah, why don't we give a little rundown about what that was? In 2013, Amazon was trying to get their foot in the door with original content. So they produced 14 original pilots, dumped them all on something called Amazon Instant Video, and gauged based on views and online responses and other stuff, I guess, which ones they would produce to series and which ones would not. Spoiler alert, this one did not get produced to series because Jason did not accept it, but other shows did, like, oh gosh, Transparent, Bosch, I think I have a list here. A bunch of junk did make it. Oh, Mozart in the Jungle, Betas, Alpha House, tons of stuff came out of there. But not this. This did not succeed.
Yeah, I believe as one of the writers put it,
Yep.
He said fans effectively hated the series out of existence.
Yeah, they truly did.
Which is dramatic, but
very
fair.
Dramatic. Listen, he's an artiste. He's in his feelings. This is what we want from him. I actually had no idea his pedigree until today when I researched him. And this is not nobody. This is the team that brought us Deadpool and Deadpool 2 and lots of other weird stuff. So it's not like this is their only project, but it does seem like it's a passion project for them.
Yeah, totally. It didn't exactly kick off their career, but I think it was probably their biggest success. Looking at their filmography, I see that, they wrote like Clifford's really big movie and Cruel Intentions 3, which I'm sure was straight to video. And then
Mm-hmm.
Zombieland out of nowhere in 2009. And then after that, they've done some pretty big things since
Humongo.
then. But yeah, no, I mean, I will always adore Zombieland, and I think it's just such a fun movie. And what's weird is I was really excited for it to be a television
Mm-hmm.
series. I thought the possibility of following a group of
There we
characters
go.
through that
Yeah,
world,
we'll get into that
yeah,
being the much better idea, but yes.
yeah. But I especially from that. Here's the thing: when you look at the pedigree behind the pilot for that TV show, you had the writers of the original movie writing the pilot. They would go on to do Deadpool 2, cough, Zombieland, double tap, cough.
Oh my god, I
Um,
just saw that today. Keep going.
it, it was directed by Eli Craig, who did Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That
Oh,
is a great pairing of filmmaker to
very
material.
good.
Um, and I'm going to go ahead and say something pretty controversial here. So, the actors themselves, hear me out, I don't think the cast itself is bad. I think
Hmm.
all of the actors are probably pretty solid
Hmm.
performers. I think the problem is that the characters, even after one movie, had already become so iconic
Very.
that it's hard to imagine anybody else in those roles,
Yeah.
especially when you have actors who are sort of obliged to try to mimic I mean, the guy who does Tallahassee, God bless him, like his looking at I hated the pilot
Hmm.
when it came out in 2013. I really did. Watching it again, I realized that nobody is terrible in it. Even the guy who plays Tallahassee, and I
No,
did
not
not look
bad.
up his name, but his comedic timing is not bad, but the
Mm-mm.
problem is that you see a guy not inhabiting a character and making it his own. You see a guy trying to do a riff on Woody Harrelson's character from the previous movie. You see a guy
Hmm.
trying to do Jesse Eisenberg. You
I
see,
think it's
you
half,
know,
and it's almost worse. It's like they're half
yeah,
in debt to these other actors, but they're also kind of they're also kind of trying to make it their own, and it's a mess.
yep. And it doesn't. But here's the thing: I think you could have called those characters anything else, and just understand that they're riffs
Yeah,
on the
the same
characters that we
archetype,
love.
even whatever. That's
Totally,
what it felt like,
totally.
other than
And
the fact that they had the same names.
that's it. That's entirely it. They were asking us to believe that this is an extension of the movie and the characters that we love. Whereas instead, if they just said, look, it's called Zombieland, you know what you're in for. Here's a group of new characters, and we're off. I think the pilot, if you left it exact, and I'm not saying that the pilot doesn't have other major issues, it surely does. But if
Race.
you had just done that, I think that would make the pilot so much more watchable.
Yeah, I didn't hate it, even though it was terrible. So like my like response to it is that the writing was really, really bad, but sometimes very, very good. And it's a shame that it couldn't come into its own because I feel like it had the potential to do that. Why is everyone's hair so clean in this franchise? Always. It drives
why
me
does
mental.
why does Tallahassee have hair? Like it's
Oh yeah,
and plus what's
truly.
crazy is that there are moments, I swear, I think the pilot was culled from ideas that they had from writing a sequel script that wasn't made initially. Because you have that opening scene which is wonderfully staged with the two office workers, and you have all of the zombie mayhem
And really
going
good
on
cameo
in the
actors
background.
too. Can you
Yeah,
tell us
oh,
who they are?
totally.
Because I could not, but I can tell you what they're in.
No, I can't. No, no, no. And I've seen it twice now. I should have noticed, but
Yeah, so the okay, so at the beginning we have two like office workers. We have like a middle-aged gay man and like a middle-aged white woman, and they're just having like a really casual, funny conversation. And of course, it's interrupted by zombies. But she is the lead from I'm pretty sure 90210, the original. I think that's Kelly or something like that. I
really, I had no idea.
definitely am almost sort of sure. And the other guy is famous. He was on Friends, and he is now like a lead gay character on Grace and Frankie. So he's like a Hollywood
I
staple.
had no idea. I recognized him vaguely. I had
Yeah.
no idea that was Kelly. That's amazing to me. But yeah, so that scene is very well staged. It's funny watching them carry out this banal conversation about how the guy's lactose intolerant, and in the
Yeah.
background you have a guy chainsawing zombies to death. You have people on fire running around, all sorts of mayhem, and then you have a guy who's taken their lunch order wheel the cart
Ruining it.
in, and you can tell
Oh my goodness. Sorry, that's my
that.
puppy.
Oh no, you're good. Hello, puppy. But you can tell in that moment that this is supposed to be the big reveal for Tallahassee, but it only works as a big reveal if it had been Woody Harrelson. As it is, it's just some random dude. We have no idea who it is.
We're kind of supposed to know who it is, but we're not. Okay, spoiler alert. Don't know why I'm still saying that. It's 2021. I had seen Zombieland, I think, in like 2009, and I hadn't seen it again until today. And I kind of was completely going in blind with all of the stuff, and I started with the pilot. So it's almost like I'd never seen Zombieland before, and I started with watching the pilot, which honestly is probably the best bet if you want to enjoy this pilot, because you
Yeah, I
do
can see
lose
that.
all of that confusing baggage that you're, I think, addressing, especially with that weird opening scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I That would probably be best because
Yeah.
watching that original movie and then having because for any number of reasons, definitely because the cast is not quite there as far as being able to fully inhabit those characters and make us forget about the other actors that we love. The budget isn't quite there to realize the world, and I just maybe part of it is just my own nostalgia for it is why I disliked the pilot so much initially because I adore that first movie. I remember
It's great.
opening night at my movie theater when that movie came out. I think there was like a 7 or 8 o'clock premiere. I organized a zombie walk from the local mall. Everyone, I think we wound up, I mean, and keep in mind, this is a relatively small town in eastern Kentucky, and there were like 65 people who showed up in makeup, and I led them through the mall concourse with a bullhorn, leading them on as they're shambling and growling and doing their best Shaun of the Dead,
Yeah.
led them out of the mall, across the parking lot, under this sort of overpass, and to the movie theater, into the lobby, scaring the living hell out of all the patrons who were there to see other movies.
Yeah.
And everybody participated, got like I want to say like a junior popcorn and a pass to see the movie for free.
I
And it
love
was
that.
it's easily one of the coolest things that I ever did. So Zombieland has this weird sort of I have a weird love for it beyond how good the movie itself is. And so I think I took a lot of that and it became a prejudice toward that pilot. And
Mhm.
you're right, like watching it again today with that distance and kind of my expectations in check, it's not terrible. It's not
Mhm.
the worst thing I've ever
No,
seen.
no,
It's
it
just
is, but it's also not. It is the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's also kind of good, you know?
That's fair.
It's
That's fair.
both.
It exists in a weird spot.
It truly does, which is called 2013. What a weird time.
Yeah, especially for I felt like this approach to uh horror TV adaptations was a little outdated. It felt a little 80s and 90s to
Oh, I
me
love
where
that you're
you know
transitioning us so
yeah,
seamlessly.
well but
Yes. I want to talk
yeah,
to you. I'm just gonna rudely interrupt, and one of the reasons I'm excited about this episode is so that we can have a quick kiki about other horror TV adaptations throughout the years, because there's so many strange ones, some of which I didn't even realize exist. Hello, Poltergeist: The Legacy. Can't wait to talk about that. And so can we talk about some of our favorite or strangest horror TV adaptations? So these are television shows based on horror movies. And I feel like it's usually the other way around.
yeah, absolutely. I Yeah, it is weird, with the 90s shows and that earlier approach it seemed like, well, let's do the movie but just on television, and so let's keep all the characters but recast and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And now it seems like what people do, it's more like, well, it can be an extension. We can do a shared universe. It can exist within the world of the movies but be its own thing.
Hmm.
And it feels like with 2013, it feels like Zombieland should have been leaning toward that. But
Uh-huh.
you're right. Instead, it does kind of the older style thing, and I think that's part of the reason it kind of failed. But looking back at, there are still TV shows from back in the 80s and 90s that didn't quite do that and tried to do their own thing. Like, I'm looking at your list here. Freddy's
Hell
Nightmares was
yeah.
definitely meant to be in the world of the films, I guess, if only by virtue of the fact that Robert Englund was playing Freddy Krueger again. But otherwise, it's kind of an anthology show. Same thing with Friday the 13th, also kind of an
Can I
anthology.
just tell you my impression and you can tell me how much I have right?
Please, please.
Okay, my impression of Friday the 13th, the series, is that, uh, so yeah, it is within the franchise. For some reason, they decided to go sans Jason, which is always a brilliant idea. And it takes place in an antique store, and each item has its own episode story.
Yes. Yeah. So the basic setup is that there's a guy who ran kind of like this curious goods store, as it were, like an
Needful
antique store.
things.
Totally that. Totally that. And he makes a deal with the devil, and ultimately, all of these objects are cursed, and they go out into the world, and then they basically give their owners these odd powers, but it's very monkey's paw. Things always go quite terrible for them. And so he dies, and then I remember the character's name. I don't remember his relationship to him. Maybe he was a friend, maybe he was a relation, but his name was Jack Marshak. And he basically took it upon himself to track down all these items and reclaim them and bring them back to the shop so that they're not out there in the world hurting people. And there are a couple of good looking youngsters who work for him, who are obviously the show's sex appeal. And that was the show. And as I understand it, it was from the same producers who did the Friday the 13th film series. The composer for the show, Harry Manfredini, did the movie. So there was that weird sort of DNA sharing there. But as I understand it, before the show was unceremoniously canceled and not given a definitive ending, the idea was that the final episode, the big finale, was going to have all of the characters reclaiming the final item, only to find out after that show is done, okay, they have one more item left. It's a cursed hockey mask, last seen in New Jersey. Let's pack our bags and let's go get this last item,
No.
and then that's it. And we never got to see that.
Oh, see, that's an episode waiting. That's an episode of Development Hell waiting to happen right there. I'm obsessed with
That'd be
that.
incredible.
I remember seeing it like the official DVD release on sale somewhere, like in Toronto. I'm sure it was like $100 in 2009. So
Oh
I didn't
wow.
make that purchase, but I kind of wish I had. Also, where is the Freddy's Nightmare DVD release? I want to know.
It's ridiculous at this
It's
point.
rude, actually.
It damn well is. New
Mm-hmm.
line, we want it. Now
Yeah, how
give
hard
it to
could
us.
that be? And also, where's the Freddy cartoon, like Beetlejuice style?
They have them. They have the masters. They have,
Are we
Robert
sure? Are
Rodriguez.
we positive? Because
Yeah,
I feel like
no,
these buildings are
Robert.
burning down and
Well, maybe not now.
okay.
Um, Robert Rodriguez, what was it? Maybe 4 or 5 years ago on his television network, El
Hmm.
Rey, they ran Freddy's Nightmares, a couple of
I
episodes
know.
a day, and they looked beautiful.
No, really. What a
Yep.
hero. What that's awesome. And I also never something we didn't add to the list, or maybe you did, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Totally From Dusk Till Dawn. That's that's such a weird one. It kind of had the Zombieland thing happening where
Oh.
it recast all of the characters, and so we're asked to kind of fall in love with these people all over again with different actors playing them. But I will say, once you get beyond the first season, which was kind of like this extended remake of the first movie, and admittedly, as a result, as much as I love the original movie, and the original movie is one of my favorite films ever, it was so tough to get into the first season because it was a different approach to it. But once it was free of remaking the first movie and it went off to do its own thing, it's fantastic. Such a great show.
Can I tell you a secret?
Hit me.
I kind of liked The Purge, at least season one.
I have not seen it yet. I like that film series, but I'm letting my Purge fandom down a little bit.
Wow.
I watched the first three movies, like them quite a bit. I have not seen the first Purge, and I've not seen the TV show yet, but I'm hoping to knock all of them out again right before the next movie
Oh my
comes
god, Purge cast, get ready. It's coming.
out.
I've only seen the first two Purges, and for some reason the series. So I am like halfway there with it. I appreciate it. I celebrate actually the Purge, but I need to actually, invest a little bit more time. Give it a little bit more.
Definitely check out the third movie because it has Frank Grillo's character from the second film coming back in it. There's that little connection between the movies, and he's fantastic as always. The man should have been cast as the Punisher, because that's essentially who he was.
All I know is that the second one is clearly the front runner. This is my question
Yeah.
mark opinion.
No, I agree. Out of the ones I've seen, anyway.
Okay, so as a rundown for the rest of this episode, We're going to talk a little bit about Zombieland. We're going to complain a little bit about Zombieland Double Tap. And then we're going to get into the
Yeah.
nitty gritty details behind Zombieland, the series, before finally concluding with our own opinions about the future of the franchise. So, why don't we jump ahead into talking about our relationship with Zombieland? You were saying that this is a big one for you, at least the first film.
Yeah, no, it really is. I love the movie. I watched it countless times in the theater. I've seen it, that it's kind of like it's comfort cinema to me. I can throw it on at yeah, I can throw it on at any point. It just makes me smile, and exactly. Yeah, yeah. It does everything in kind of like this. It somehow rides that very thin line between being able to be tongue in cheek about the genre that they're in while not poking fun at themselves or undercutting the sort of the gravity of the situation in a way. It's something that Shaun of the Dead does incredibly well too, and I adore both of those movies for that. And it's funny that Zombieland sort of came out right. It came out at the tail end of the sort of zombie boom that happened after 28 Days Later, The Rising, and the Walking Dead comic book. So on the one hand, it felt like it was sort of commenting on what had come before it. And yet at the same time, it was also pressing in a way because it came just before the next zombie, which was kicked off by the Walking Dead television series. So it's nestled in that weird little spot. And it feels like, yeah, if it had come out maybe a year or two before or a year or two after, I feel like it would have been, pretty rude in a health series where we would be getting sequels every 2 years. As it is, it just kind of stood for the longest time as this lone gem. And I gotta say, I'm one of the guys who wanted to see what a TV show would look like.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm partially to blame. I'm the guy who wanted to see a sequel for the longest
Oh, it
time.
was
Guys,
you?
hey,
God, I'm
yeah, I
sorry.
was I was the guy.
I,
Give me
I
more,
gotta
give me
leave.
more, give me more. And then they gave me
They
more, and I was
tried,
like,
yeah.
whoops,
They really did their
my bad.
best. And I think maybe the first film is just sort of lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
It had the right people at the right time with this really good mixture of horror and humor. I'm producers tell me like do not touch horror comedy. Like, we cannot sell that. And then I see so many successful ones that are so good and I think, why are you so afraid? Why are we so scared of this? There must be a good reason, but it is a
I
tricky genre to tackle.
Well, I think you said it. I mean, I think the perfect sort of example is Zombieland and Zombieland Double Tap, which I do want to point out, and I know we're going to get into it, but I don't hate that movie. But when you look at the two, both have healthy budgets, both have the exact same cast, both have the same writers and
Mhm.
directors, and yet one works marvelously, lightning in a bottle, and doesn't. And that to me tells me that horror comedy, mixing those two,
It's hard.
it's got to be tough to pull off. But at the same time, if you have people telling you that you shouldn't be doing that, then that to me tells you that that's probably what everybody's thinking. In which case, look, the field is cleared for you, to take a run. So
Yeah, and it's also too listen, comedy's hard, like, very difficult to get done well. And I think so is good horror. So maybe it's just, it's just a challenging subgenre that not anyone can just do. Another subgenre that I'm obsessed with is the amusement park setting subgenre. Um, there are so many good horror movies, or even not horror movies, that take place in amusement parks, and I kind of want to just like run. I actually took this off of the outline, so you're in the dark right now. But
oh no,
some of my favorites include the Way Back from a few years back with
oh
the water
nice.
slide film. Love it. And obviously the Funhouse was a good time. The Toby Hooper moment. Is there anything that you can think of? Is there any like amusement park movies subgenre that like come to mind?
What's funny is that before Zombieland came out, I was wondering if it was some sort of weird companion movie or sequel to Adventureland
Okay.
by
Wow,
virtue of Jesse
Adventureland.
Eisenberg being in it.
Yes,
Like
it feels that's
maybe
so funny. And I've seen both in act same era, same everything. I feel like
same era, same leads. The titles are
wait, was
similar.
Emma Stone in that too?
I
I
don't
mean,
think she was
she
in it. I
might
think it
as
was
well have been, right? Like it might like
Kristen
you
Stewart.
might Kristen
But
Stewart, same thing, no offense.
2009, they were
They were,
interchangeable then.
and listen, wow, they both really pulled through. Same with this entire cast of Zombieland. Like these are now prestige, like Hollywood staples, and I'm talking about Amber Heard,
Ah, yes.
who has a brief but memorable appearance in this
Yeah,
movie.
she's I am much like everybody. When a woman makes an accusation like this, you take it very seriously. And so she, when she, made the claims against Depp, it's like, oh my God, he's a comparable, that poor woman. And then those audio tapes were released, and then those pictures were released, and she had played victim up until that point, kind of left all of the other stuff out while playing victim, and then so I had some weird flashbacks. So when all of that came out, like the audio tapes and stuff, I turned pretty quickly
Yeah, I mean it's messy,
in
messy,
that regard.
messy.
I think the truth is somewhere in between. I think they were both probably just terrible for one another.
Oh, and or perfect because they do both seem truly chaotic. Two chaotic
Unhinged.
evils are not good in the same room. So
Just, damn it, Johnny Depp, get back with Winona Ryder, get sane again. Amber,
is
do your
that how
thing
that
wherever.
happens? Because I don't think that would help. I think
I
that
don't
would
know.
make things
I don't know.
worse.
They seemed happier back then.
They
I don't
did.
know.
I love her still, but I don't know if she's like my pinnacle for stability.
Well,
Big fan
again,
though.
maybe they can make it work together.
Maybe they will. They'll casually give each other tattoos in hotel rooms
Yeah, exactly.
because I feel like that's what he likes doing.
Winona
He
Forever
isn't my
again.
favorite movie of all time though, and I'm not going to make you guess. It's Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow is one of the greatest ever made.
Thank you. I sometimes I get really nervous saying it because it feels embarrassing, but and maybe like childhood nostalgia stunted moment, but it's the truth for me. I have to.
No, movie is brilliant. You get no argument from me. I think it's arguably, I can't say that it's Burton's best, but it's top 3
Oh
easily.
yeah, it's
So
not his best, but it's my favorite. Can we do top 3 Burton?
top 3
Why do I
Burton.
keep bringing up
Go.
Burton? Oh, are you making me go first? Did you say go?
I can go
Oh yeah,
first.
yeah, please do.
Okay, but these are going to be unranked. They all
Okay.
sort of
And don't say Ed
collectively
Wood. If you
exist
say
in
Ed
one.
Wood, I'm gonna be so suspicious. You're gonna say Ed Wood. I feel it already. Okay, you know what?
So
I'm backing off. I'm backing off.
so Ed Wood
I knew
is
it.
marvelous, but it's not in my
Oh,
top
God, I
3.
got so.
For me, top 3 Burton, and keep in mind I love so much of his stuff, including Ed.
Yeah, it's good.
But my top 3 would be Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, and Sleepy Hollow.
These are just like unmovable moments from pop culture that I'm obsessed with. Okay, wait. Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, and Sleepy Hollow. Yeah, I don't think these would be on everybody's list. I think Edward Scissorhands would be, but the other two I think sometimes go under the radar. Although Batman Returns is just how can you not be talking about him?
It's perfection.
Oh,
It's
so good. And Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer, like those are my 2 favorite performances of all time. I feel like Michelle Pfeiffer in that movie and Danny DeVito in that movie are the 2 sides to my personality. Like that's who I am. That's my
amazing.
true
I
self.
I am still what is it? Nearly 30 years later, 29 years later, I'm still in love with Michelle
How
Pfeiffer's
couldn't
Catwoman.
you? First of all, the woman is still a statuesque gorgeous, like could not be more beautiful if it was possible. But yeah, holy cow. In that movie, the magnetism is just unheard of.
Yeah, oh, totally. You go back to his original movie with, Burton's first movie, that is, with Kim Basinger, and it's like, there is no
Oh
whatsoever.
yeah.
I'm meant
Well, I
to
mean,
believe it as a viewer,
yeah.
but there is
Has
none.
Kim Basinger
Whereas
had chemistry with anyone ever?
Mickey Rourke in 9.5 Weeks, I would say. And even though the story isn't meant to go this route, I would say that she has way more chemistry with Emmett Exley. Why can I not remember his name? I love the actor. Guy Pearce. She has way more chemistry with Guy Pearce in LA Confidential than she does with Russell Crowe, who's her guy.
Oh, I think I think she had pretty good chemistry with her cell phone in Phone Booth. Because that's the only other Kim
Very true.
Basinger movie that's coming to mind. If I'm going to be honest with you, I am a millennial, mid-range.
Not fair,
Are
fair,
you a
fair, fair.
millennial? Are you end of line millennial? Or are
Me,
you an
I'm
X?
81, and I've read
Oh, you're on the
2
cusp.
different things. Yeah, so there is one
Oh,
study
millennial.
that said that Gen X ends at, like, I want to say
80?
well into 81,
Oh.
and I was born in April of 81, so I literally made Gen X by just 2 months. But then there is another thing that said that basically, so I don't know. Yeah, no. So yeah, with Zombieland Double Tap, to me, it just seemed like, even though they had the same director, they had the same cast, they had the same writers. Obviously, they had a healthy budget. All of the ingredients were there to make it right. And yet, for whatever reason, it didn't have the same magic. I was using the sort of example that with the first movie, it had that spark, it had that magic, it had the magician pulled the rabbit out of the hat, and we all stared in wonder, right? But you get to Zombieland Double Tap, and the magician is there. The hat is maybe a little bigger, a little shinier. He reaches in, he pulls out the rabbit, and well,
Amber Heard? I'm scared.
no,
No.
we get another rabbit, and the rabbit
Oh,
is
okay.
maybe the rabbit is God. It would be scary if it were Amber. Because get out of there. Why are you
Just
there?
because, like, why are you in there? Like, are you okay? Was this Johnny Depp? Okay, I have to cut everything again.
No, you're fine. She wanted to know why she wasn't in the sequel. She was ready to throw some cell phones, maybe chop their fingers off. I don't
Yeah,
know.
let's keep talking. Yeah, yeah, you're right. I think they probably did everything they could, and lightning in a bottle didn't happen for them again. Even though they did seem to be able to pull it off twice with Deadpool, although I'm not a superhero guy, so don't take my opinion seriously.
I love both of those movies, and arguably
Yeah, I do too.
They've done it 3 times. They did another cut of Deadpool for the holidays with Fred Savage, being kidnapped by Deadpool, and being read the much like the Princess Bride. Did you see that version of Deadpool too?
No, I didn't know this existed. I'm interested.
Okay, so this is the craziest thing. When Deadpool came out, it was obviously hard R, but it was an X-Men superhero movie, right? So you had all of these kids wanting to go watch the movie, and they couldn't, or rather, they shouldn't, and parents took them anyway. But when the second movie came out, it was much the same thing, obviously hard R. But 20th Century Fox did something very interesting. They, for 2 weeks during the holiday season, they cut Deadpool down to, and they blew all of the language and whatnot. They cut out all of the heavy, and then they bookended the along, and they sort of interspersed these scenes throughout where Deadpool, because it's the holidays, he wants to basically a fairy tale version of Deadpool 2. Censored for children, and in order to do that, he needs to do it like Peter Falk did in The Princess Bride.
Yeah,
so he
I can picture it.
I love it. He kidnaps Fred Savage. He duct tapes him down to a bed, much like his childhood bedroom from The Princess Bride, and then he reads him the story of Deadpool 2, much as Peter Falk did in Princess Bride. And it's honestly, I felt like I felt like I was high, and I wasn't while watching this movie. But yeah,
it's genius. I think that could have been the main release.
Should have been. Damn it, it should have been.
I've heard them say, I think it was the director that was like, this doesn't really need to be an R franchise. It would succeed at PG-13, maybe even PG. But what do I?
It's so weird. So many people pushed this time for the R-rated. I remember that was a big thing in fandom. Because Reynolds wanted to make the movie. The filmmaker, I believe it was Tim Miller, he wanted to direct it, and they were pushed hard for an R film. And I remember going to a comic, and the writer comic who had seen footage. This was before the footage was quote unquote leaked by who knows, Ryan Ruff. And he said, "Look, I've seen the footage. It's absolutely amazing. They the character." And he was like, "But they just went up." And he was like, "And it's funny as hell." And he was like, "But they're so hardcore about it being." And he was like, I'm over here, like the guy who wrote the comic for so many years, being like, you guys, you know what? You guys do.
It's funny because I feel like you're right. This is always the thing that we're pushing for as fans, is like, get something de-Hollywoodified and R-rate it. But it doesn't have to happen. And I feel like this is the prime example. Because what is this movie riding on other than the charisma of the lead character and really good writing?
Exactly.
Wow, that was really hard for me because I do not do superhero movies because I'm, gay. So I think everyone needs to applaud me for really doing my best.
This is another conversation that I want to have. It's probably not appropriate for Zombieland, but one day, someday, we need to talk about superhero.
I mean, yeah, I like it. Speaking of being gay, I think the best part about Zombieland Double Tap has to be Zoe Deutsch. Wait, Dutch? Deutsch?
Deutsch.
Deutsch. Zoe Deutsch saves this movie, in my humble gay opinion. Maybe too good for the writing that she's given, because the character is very two-dimensional, sort of mall girl energy, but the nuances that this girl gives the performance are crazy and so specific, and really sort of subverts the archetype in a way that I'm sure the writers are helping out with, and I love it. And I have heard that the director of this movie, while maybe not super interested in doing a third Zombieland, has expressed interest in making a standalone Madison movie, and I would love that.
That would be something.
Oh,
She's amazing.
so good.
She really is, and she, as a kid, so
Yes.
to see her daughter like sort
Excuse
of
me.
wield the same chops like
Yeah,
his mom did back in the day is awesome.
it's
I think
wild.
she's great in it. I think you're right. I think she took, you in a trope as, not just well worn. I mean, it's a dead dandelion. You blow on it, it's
Yes,
just going to
yes,
disappear, right?
yes.
But as a trope so well worn, quote unquote dumb blonde, like
Mm,
you would expect a franchise like Zombieland turn that idea on its head and subvert it a little bit. And I feel like the movie tries to at times, but I also feels like it wallows
yes,
sort of just, base humor when it comes to that. And God bless her, it feels really elevates that character and
she
gives her
does.
another dimension that really wasn't the writing. You're absolutely right. So
Yes, I agree.
at
Thank God.
at the same
Otherwise, I'd have to
time,
yell.
I don't know that I could see her
You don't
leading.
love it. You're not obsessed.
No, no, I just don't know that I could see her leading her own franchise or her own film.
So you
Maybe.
hate women. That's fine. I get it.
Do
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. No, listen. The character's not. There's just not enough on paper yet. So I agree with you. She was just giving it her all, and God, I love her for it.
Now, I do want to clarify. I am all about Zoe Deutsch getting her own franchise. I just don't
Yeah.
know that I want it to be Madison. Like
No, I agree. Although I love the jokes about her living in the Pinkberry fridge in the mall.
yeah,
That's probably the funniest part of the movie.
that is her one. That's her one rule, right? Like Columbus has
Yeah,
all
yeah,
these
yeah. I
rules. The other
rules
people.
do. It's they live in the fridge. I loved her. I loved how. Yes, the movie itself was not subverting her well enough. She was smart, or she should have been quite smart, and we saw glimpses of this. But the movie did not respect her enough to actually go deep enough into her character for us to know what was up.
I agree. Yeah, and which is a shame because again, she winds up being the breakout.
Oh, easy. Did you watch The Politician? I feel like straight people didn't, so don't be sad if you didn't.
No, I didn't. I haven't even.
Oh, it's I think the first Ryan Murphy Netflix original series.
Oh,
There's 2 seasons of it, and she's in it, and she's really spectacular. She plays the granddaughter of Jessica Lange, and they sort of play that true crime story about the mom that kept her daughter sick on purpose so they could scam and get money.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was the gist of her character, and it was pretty good. She's quite the performer.
Well,
So
that's
yeah, I
good
want to
job.
see more for her too.
Ryan Murphy and Jessica Lange. That is.
That's it, right?
I mean, come on. That's
I
amazing.
know. Yeah, I mean that. Speaking of gay, like that's it. That's the culture right there. Do we have anything else to say about Zombieland Double Tap? Is there anything we need to get off of our chest at the minute in time?
I don't know that there's anything else to say about it, except, given that we're talking about the Zombie TV series, I'm just wondering, could you see, because it's been a while since I've seen Double Tap. I obviously just rewatched, the TV pilot, but I'm wondering, do you think there are any elements that were sort of played with in the TV show that wound up being recycled in Double
Oh.
Tap? Did you see any sort of
I wasn't. I should have been thinking about it harder. And the only reason I have an answer for this is I read some kind of interview with the writers who said that yes, there were some ideas or some traces of concepts crossed over, but I think in his words was that it was sort of less than you would imagine.
Gotcha.
So I'm not sure. I kind of feel like kind of is my answer. What do you think?
the idea of, their eye in the sky on, I love that. When
Hmm.
they announced the movie, I kind of half expected Rosario Dawson to sort of take up that role. And then you watch the movie play out and it's like, oh, okay, it's not, so I was expecting that
Hmm.
to at least be the one element and really sort
Yeah.
of, sort of re-engineered for that sequel. And it just,
They didn't do, and what a waste of Rosario Dawson.
it's insulting.
It's crazy that, and this franchise has a problem with diverse. We'll touch a little bit more on that with series, but it felt to me that there was a note in the room about diversity in the series. And what did they do? They like give 5 seconds of screen time to Rosario Dawson and call it a day. So I don't think for 2019 that was quite good enough. But a lot
Yeah.
changed overnight in 2020, and you would never see something like this happen again. Like this movie would not have been made so white a year later. So at least that's the world that we're in now.
It'll be curious to see for any number of what approaches are taken all across with given the reception of the second movie, going to see it.
No. I think we're lucky that we got a second. Yeah, I also want to say there. Listen, I love that first movie, and we're talking about race a little bit. It was a little uncomfortable, the scene where they're in the gift shop and they're just destroying indigenous gifts for like an entire montage. Did that click with you on this rewatch? Did that like
Yeah,
did you clock that?
it's a little weird, but at the same time, I wonder if there is a level of satire there, like watching,
Oh,
this
I didn't even
obviously
consider that.
redneck guy,
Yeah,
without in a world without watching, and the fact that that is there, I mean, rather than preserve what is there for history, like they just stomp, you know,
it's the white move. It's what we
yeah,
want to do.
I mean, it's, so I wonder if, and that may not be the case at all, but it felt, I hope the writers were clever more with that sequence more than just, hey, why don't we just have a fun sequence? Like, this is our version of the mall scene, but this is what
Yeah.
these guys do. I hope it's more than.
In my mind, there were like punching holes, dream catchers, and stuff like that. Like it was wild. I don't think it was on purpose. I think it was like a sad accident, but it was like. And we're gonna move on into Zombieland, the series, where we've been working towards this entire time. So, first announced in October of 2011 for CBS, Zombieland, the series, was spearheaded by writers of the original film, Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese. Am I saying these right, dude?
Yeah, I think so.
Amazing. But it actually sat dormant for 2 years until, as we talked about, Amazon Studios came around and developed the pilot in 2013 for its series of pilot pushes that they were putting on the internet. We talked about how they were using the same characters but different actors. Something I want to talk about now is, so the new character that they sort of added in was the voice of the OnStar operator, who, like, I don't know how you felt about it, but I like in theory, like, it's a really smart and cute and outside of the box idea. I really liked it. Although it just it stands out as a bit of a sore thumb because it's the only black voice or character we have in this entire show is a disembodied voice, and like, I don't know, it's kind of hard not to zone in on that in watching it in 2021.
Yeah, I feel like almost in that the series was kind of painted by then presumed
Yeah,
casted, and so that
yeah.
already, and that's, I think, gotten a little adventurous, and new characters do that far more together. But instead,
Hmm.
they put themselves in a position where, okay, so we're already married to.
Yeah,
So I feel
totally.
like with Detroit, maybe there was the hope. Was the character only ever meant a voice on the radio, or the OnStar rather? I don't know.
Yeah, and they do. Maybe they're gonna go visit her, or did I make that up?
Yeah, no, I think that was the idea. They were eventually, she was going to help lead them to
Right.
the East Coast, and I can't imagine, especially with Tallahassee admittedly being somewhat in love with her, that he wouldn't have wanted to swing by Michigan to pick her up.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but you're right. When the only other bit of representation show is she's immediately dispatched, it's a little
Oh, right.
you just
I
cringe a little.
It's a little cringy. It kind of reminds me of how they used Lupita in the Star Wars film. Great,
Yeah.
we're putting some interesting voices in, but like, they don't actually get to be on the screen. It's a little bit insulting.
Yeah, although I agree with you 100%. I do love the best things. Her performance is one of the best things
Oh,
for the
okay, I believe you.
for the 5 minutes that she's in it. I
I was gonna say I don't remember much of it, but I didn't see the third one, so I can't speak to that.
Oh, good. Just, you know what? Make up your own ending. It's fine.
Really, I kind of just
Oh,
thought the nerds were being nerds, or because
s-
everyone hated the second one, and then 5 years later, we're all like, actually, we liked it. So I
I'm
was expecting that to happen with the third.
I'm the weird fan who thought that The Last Jedi was just fine. Love it and hate it. I thought it was perfectly fine. I
Russia
love.
didn't influence your opinion on it.
No, not at all. And I love Ryan Johnson. I thought
Oh, I mean, me too. Did you hear about the Russian conspiracy about that film?
no, no, no.
Oh, there was a conspiracy, I believe, this may be true, that for some reason or another, there was like a fake news campaign against it to make it seem like it wasn't a success. I can't, you know what? I don't have anything to back this up. But it was felt very Russia 2016 election energy.
That's so strange. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's fine. But I will say, like, Force Awakens, thought it was a blast.
Oh, so good.
Last Jedi, good. Solo, surprisingly great. Rogue One, not that great. But yeah, you get to Star Wars film, the movie that not only this new trilogy was building towards, but it's culmination of a 9-film story, 3 trilogies, all building to this one film. That's a lot of weight for it to carry. It's kind of unfair that it needs to carry all of that on its shoulders, but it's just terrible. It is
No, not terrible.
it is astonishingly poorly written. It
Harsh,
is
harsh.
directed lazily. Like you can tell there's no heart in it. It just it blew me away how
It's too bad. It's too bad. For such a cultural important franchise, you think they'd put a little more, I don't know, chutzpah behind it. I do think J.J. Abrams needs to start thinking ahead a little bit more. We saw it on Lost, we're seeing it now. Like, let's think 5 years in the future. We'll get the guy a whiteboard
yeah, it's
so
like,
he can start planning out the next 5 years.
hey JJ, do you want to? I don't know.
He's right here. He's listening. He's here.
JJ, hey,
Yeah, he's here.
we share initials, pal. Let's put our heads
Yeah.
together and figure out how to write a middle and an end at the same time or at the beginning.
Oh, sorry. No, he says he's really busy ruining Stephen King properties. He's busy.
Oh,
Okay,
now
all right,
I
sorry,
will
sorry.
say I do like Castle Rock. I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh, you know what? I can't speak poorly about Castle Rock. I cannot.
Surprisingly good, but you know what? He also had good writing. There's that. He couldn't pull any of that mystery box bullshit with pre-existing King characters. You know?
It's such bullshit. Have you seen Lisi's story yet?
No, but I want to.
Lisi's story? Yeah, I just saw the first episode. I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued. Of course, it is written by King himself. The teleplay is by King and not JJ, so that's good.
Ooh.
Yes. Right. So overall thoughts about Zombieland this is, I've said it a few times. I'm gonna say it again. It's really bad, but I also kind of liked it, and I think there's glimpses of a brighter tomorrow. There's glimpses of like, wow, maybe a season 2 could have been great. Like maybe this could have been, The Walking Dead, but with, a little bit more of like a wink. But we didn't get there.
No, not at all. And you know what? Here's the thing. You're right. There are glimmers. There are, look, they were coming to film. There's no reason a Zombieland TV series couldn't work. It bums me out that, and part of it I thought was kind of revolutionary. What Amazon was, where it's like, let's let the viewers pick which shows go forward. Hey, that actually sounds like a great idea. But the problem with this one is I feel like it was ready, and I think they must have, if they had just taken a look at it, if they had looked at it soberly and broke down what didn't work about it, went back to the board, put a little more money into it to figure out what was going wrong and how they could fix it, there is no reason that Zombieland could have taken off as a comedic counterpoint to The Walking Dead and all of its success. It could have worked, and it could have kept that series, the Zombieland. It could have kept it relevant, and it could have, and it could have, it could have kept the energy alive for that to better allow for a sequel to be successful, and maybe in workshopping some of these ideas, seeing how they worked on screen over the course of several seasons, maybe by the time that they got to Zombieland Double Tap, all of the freshness and magic from that first movie, it wouldn't have been dulled. It would have been sharpened. It would have been hung. But instead, they gave up on it. They shot kind of a shitty pilot, that had some unfortunate mistakes made at the development stage. They threw it out there for people to vote on. It got voted down. Writers acted all hurt, and everybody went their separate ways. And it didn't. And so maybe that's the thing that disappoints me most, and what I really come away from this last time, which is there are seeds there. There are seeds. Had they been tended properly, I think given as something as it is, it's always going to stand as kind of
a perfect choice for Development Hell, the podcast, and I appreciate you pushing us in this direction. Do you think that there is a future for this franchise in some capacity? There's 2 questions here. Do you think there is a future, and do you want there to be?
For Zombieland?
Yeah.
You know what? I would like nothing more than for, what are we at now? Let's say 8 years from now. Get the gang back together, see where those characters are. I would like nothing more to walk into a Zombieland triple threat, let's say, or
Cute.
something,
Love it already.
And for it to be fantastic. To get back some of that magic, do something, wow audiences all over. I would be all about it. What I don't want is another Double Tap. What I don't want is another team that's kind of misfire. If they try it, they gotta try to park. What's the point?
I agree. And I think, right now it's kind of hard to imagine, but I think you're right. Now, unfortunately, we would need some time before it came back to really, for it to deserve the space.
Yeah, we're a little.
Even the last time around, I think the space is what kind of stood in its way.
The space, you're absolutely right. The space hurt the first time around. We were, you know what? They just need to listen to us. This is a relationship between us, the fans, and the Zombieland franchise. We asked for more. We didn't get it, and so by the time we did get it, and it was
although I think we would have been, if it had been better, have sunk back into it. I don't think it was a flop financially. I think it actually did okay.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah, and I think it got mediocre reviews, if not actually semi-good reviews. But there's just no question that it doesn't capture what the first movie captured. Like that scene where they con the girls con the boys, and you really emotionally believe that she's been bitten and that he has to kill her, and she gets the gun. Do you know what I'm talking about? In the very first film.
Oh yeah.
And like that's the kind of magic that they just it's hard to recapture because it's so good.
Yeah, I agree, and it's like I said, if honestly, who are we? They could make a Zombieland movie tomorrow and I'd go see it. Like they could make 3 or 4 or 5 more pretty lousy, and we're still gonna go watch because of all of the goodwill.
As of yesterday, I wouldn't have, but as of today, absolutely yes. It's just it's since 2009. I had no idea. I totally forgot.
Yeah.
But...
So as it is, I want more? Yes, with reservations. But do I expect we'll get more? No, I think we're of a question mark. It'll be to see. If we do, I think it is going to be very
or maybe a TV series in 30 years. Who knows? It's Zombieland. You just never know. That's the tagline to Zombieland. You never know.
Rule number 99.
You just never know. You just never know. Hey, Jinx, where can people find you on the internet?
So you can find my writing on Bloody Disgusting. You can listen to my podcast on Apple or honestly any of your favorite podcasts, as it were. You can, or just go to screamaddicts.com. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm usually writing all sorts of interesting things on there these days. You can find me there at Jinx1981, JIX19, and or you can find me at Scream Addicts. That's at Scream. And otherwise,
and you can find all of those links to get to Jinx in our show notes. All right, well, thank you so much for listening. And that's a big thank you to Jinx for joining us for a second time on Development Hell. You can also check out our second episode on the Lost Army of Darkness sequel, worth looking into. And you can find him online in our show notes. He's all over the place. Give him a follow. All right, well, that's all for this week. Hope you enjoyed our episode on Zombieland, the series. And we'll be back with another episode of Development Hell. Coming soon to Dread, the Maid. Joy is the new maid of a royal house, whose previous maid disappeared under mysterious circumstances and is now haunting and terrorizing the family. Joy works to uncover the reason behind the former maid's disappearance. The Maid will be made available on demand everywhere July 20, 2021, and on Blu-ray August 17th, 2021.